Doesn't anymore. Well, whatever. It doesn't really matter because you're all sitting here, and whether you know it or not, creative force brought you here. And I think as yogis we awaken or reawaken that longing. Whether you call the creative force God or the creative force, the mother, the father, science, it doesn't really matter. We all agree, is that correct, that something beyond our own mental minds created our bodies and created the world? Is anyone want to say no? Okay. Well, then let that be. Let that be your bowing or thanking. And you don't even have to give it a name. That which one day your mother and father got together, right? And in an egg, a sperm passed into an egg. Is that correct? You know where babies come from, right? Like where you came from. And that was the beginning. Correct? Did anyone come out of a test tube? No? Did anyone get here by different means than that? Tell us. Are you an alien who just came in? Nowadays, they can do it outside the body, as you all know, in a petri dish. They can take the eggs and the sperm, stir them up, put them back, and there you got a baby. However, it's still an egg and it's still a sperm, correct? It has to come from male, female, so that we come into the world as we are. So what happens in the mother's womb then? You've got this egg and the sperm, and they're doing their dance, and then that little wiggly thing gets in the egg, and then cells start dividing to be who you are today. Can you imagine that? You started out as a single cell under a microscope. How many cells are there? 40 trillion? 30 trillion plus, some say more. So we had to divide 30 trillion times to be sitting here today. Now if you can't call that a creative something or other, I don't know what else, That's so amazing. So what's the first thing that's created in your body? Does anyone know? We have some scientists here. What?
Your heart?
Yeah, your heart. So, that means before your brain? Yeah. So if the first thing that started in us is the heart, then everything in us is from the heart. Is that correct? Legs grew out of the heart. Arms grew out of the heart. Your head grew out of the heart. Your brain grew out of your heart. Every single thing. So our foundation is our hearts. About 13,000 years ago, before man was intelligent like they are now, well-learned and scholarly like they are now, most of the world couldn't even read or write. They were called the indigenous ones. And I know you have them because I've been given a book while I was here. What are they called? Sama. And I have the book and I've been reading. And then they have in the same book all the indigenous ones throughout the whole world. There's a little map. And there's about 8 million of them who still have that indigenous characteristics of being one with the earth, one with the elements before this got so overdeveloped. So somehow in the course of humanity we said this is the most important thing in the whole body, to value the mind, to develop the mind. And intelligence became the number one commodity, you might say. IQ, scholastic ability, how much learning you had done, how many degrees, and on like that. And what happened in that transition is humanity left the heart. We valued this, And we lost the connection with the heart, which was the beginning of our true intelligence. It was the beginning of us. Some years later, in fact, in the 90s, through much speculation for a long, long time, that why does everybody say, live from your heart, feel from your heart, sing from your heart, speak from your heart, hear from your heart. Have you ever heard people say, feel from your brain? Speak from your brain? No. Because it's not of value to the true consciousness of the human race. We all know it. But we still value this more. And because we've conditioned generation after generation to value this more, we have a whole world developed from this and not from this. Because if you live from here, you wouldn't even contemplate or consider war, division, discrimination. So how does one get to this place of love? We're also conditioned not to trust and not to live in this place 100%. There are several ways you can do it. Of course, we believe Kundalini Yoga is maybe one of the fastest ways to get there. But you still have to be so mindful, because your mind can trick you even in Kundalini Yoga. It can make you an egomaniac. It can make you think you're the best teacher, and on and on and on. One good thing is to find those in history or maybe who are living today who you can experience better if they're in person. Yogi Bhajan was a fine example of that. We don't have too many living anymore on planet Earth. Most of them have left their bodies. But we have one figure, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I know for myself, how many of you have been in his presence? Most of us have profound experiences with a man who's so one with his heart and who's so enlightened. There can be 40,000 people in a room in a big stadium, and I've been many places with him, from India to Switzerland to America and other places. And it's the same thing that happens if it's 40,000 people or if it's 300 people. Everyone's busy talking, chatting, and he walks in and there's a total silence. But it's not just a total silence. It's a feeling of total joy and happiness that everyone feels collectively, and you can't even say and put it into words. I try to explain it in the 8 Human Talents, how time stood still. And yet every time I am in his presence, whether it's small groups or very, very large groups, it's the same feeling. It's like a ripple that crosses everybody as we just stand in awe, not of the man because he's good looking or he has a new suit on or he's a movie star. No, because he wears the same thing. He looks the same all the time. But it's the radiance that comes from his heart that everyone feels. All of a sudden everything feels okay. Feels like everything's fine in the world, in our home life, your health, every single thing. And that is the power of love. That is the power of love. The light of your mind is what we go for, because when the heart is full, then it just naturally connects with your mind and lights you up and gives you the power of intuition. It opens up your throat chakra so you don't even have to ever think what you're going to say, because you trust what you say is going to come from your heart. So you don't have to make up speeches or write emails and then not send them because you're so or like that. If the flow comes, the flow comes, the flow comes. And I think tonight, as we come into the greatness that we all want, as we come into all of that There's elements in the heart that Kundalini Yoga can help lift. One of them is grudges and resentments, non-forgiving. Sometimes we think that it's our duty to not forgive something. Let's just say you were violated sexually by an unknown or a known, because it happens often with close relatives even, and you think you're responsible to never forget and to hold that grudge or that hate or that resentment your whole life. You almost feel duty-bound to do it. Because if you don't do it, where's that energy going to be? And where are you going to be? But really, the best thing you can do is forgive. I know it's tough. Some of you have been through a lot. I'm looking around, I can tell by your faces. Some of you have been violated in many ways. But what good is it to hold on to it? And I know you're not religious, but there was a great man who lived on this planet. His name was Jesus. He was a great man. We can't even know how great he was. What did he say when he was on the cross? What?
Forgive them as they do not know what they're doing.
Yeah, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And when you look back over your life and maybe things your parents did or whoever it was in your life, your prominent people, if they knew, they wouldn't have. Because anybody who delineates from their heart is ignorant. Now, why do they delineate from their heart? Because of their conditioning, because of their womb life as the cells divided from what their mother was thinking, their mother was doing, their mother was eating or drinking, their mother's thoughts about the birth, about them. And where did that come from? Their mother. And it goes on and on and on. Then the first 3 years you formulate who you are. By 7 it's sealed. And then the rest of your life you're working backwards trying to undo. And then you find a Kundalini Yoga class. And then you start the work. A lot of work comes with a lot of crying. A lot of rage comes out. A lot of anger comes out. A lot of healing takes place. But the ultimate healing is forgiveness. And when you're able to, then you're able to forgive yourself. And what comes with that is self-love. So it all spins back to your own hearts. We change partners. We move out of countries. We change jobs. We change houses. We change every single thing, saying it's going to be better here. But you're taking the same heart there. And I'm not saying that that might be necessary. But if you find yourself hopping from relationship to relation, location to location of your work, your home, stop. You're longing for a home inside yourself. You're longing for self-love. So as we go through class today, we'll get a good opportunity, 1, to shake things out, 2, to chant things out, to breathe things out. So the only thing we have left is joy and a surrender, because you'll be so tired. You'll say, okay, God, I surrender, okay, I forgive him, what the heck, I'm too tired to keep. And you know what happens as you get older? You don't usually, I'm not saying always, but if you're really striving and trying to work hard on your life, you don't have as much energy to be as angry as you used to be. Or to just hold resentments. You kind of look at it from a different point of view. Maybe they call it wisdom. But when you're young, you just are so feisty and you just want to prove to the world whatever your identity is. It comes in chapters. So to not be so hard on yourself will help us not to judge others. Yogi Bhajan and I said, God save us from fanatics and from psychics. Because they're both destructive to ourselves and to others in many cases. And watch and be very, very mindful that as a Kundalini Yoga teacher or a new student, so ambitious and so loving it, work on not judging other forms of yoga, your family around you who maybe is not doing it. You become a vegetarian and you judge everyone who's eating meat like it's disgusting. You stop smoking and then you end up judging everyone that smokes. You decide not to drink and then you judge your mate for drinking. Because you know what will happen? Does anyone know? You'll go back to doing all that. Because if you judge, it means you're so afraid you're going to be that, and you still see that. Let's say you smoked for 30 years, and you decide at the age of 31 through grace, and it comes with grace, that you no longer need it. So you let it go. Maybe for some it's easy, for others it's more of a challenge, but you do it. You do it 40 days, and then 120, and then you're feeling really good about yourself. But then you see somebody, maybe an old friend, and your mind starts judging them like crazy. Don't they know what smoke does? And why don't they stop? I stopped, and what's wrong with them? Everything. Next day you'll be smoking again. Because Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Just like we're being asked to forgive ourselves for every single thing. When I was 19, it was nothing for me to go get a double-decker cheeseburger. Those things in America, do they have like bun, bread, cheese, meat, bun, bread, cheese, meat, and all this stuff, and it would all go all like this all over. I mean, I thought they were the best thing that God had ever created. But do I beat myself up for not having been a vegetarian my whole life? No way. I didn't know about it. Same as I don't know about a lot of things yet. That will be revealed to me as I go along. Most of us don't get it all. Every aspect. But whoever told us to feel guilty, whoever told us not to forgive ourselves, you have that right as your birthright. Because you can say to yourself, Father, forgive me, I didn't know what I was doing. However, when you do come to know what you're doing, and then you don't, it's again, Creator never judges you. But you will become disturbed psychically with yourself. Sometimes it takes a period of time to unravel your history and bring you to who you are. Give yourself patience, because patience pays, as Yogi Bhajan said. But that's where it comes to be very mindful, to watch your mind and see how you go for those old addictions again. Then after a while you'll have the power inside of you, connected to the heart, to make the choice, or have the choice be made through grace. I remember it was 42 years ago, at least. I was quite a wild flower child. And I knew it was coming to an end after about 8 years, that I just couldn't keep carrying on like I was. And I was carrying on a lot. And one night, it was New Year's Eve, and I was in California in Big Sur. Does anyone know what Big Sur is? It's the most beautiful place in California, right on the highway and right on the coast, so beautiful. And of course, there were parties after parties on New Year's Eve, and a voice said inside of me, do everything tonight, because you'll never do it again. It was just a voice. I didn't plan on this voice. On this year, I will not know. But it was trailing to an end because I was getting kind of bored with it. I've been doing all that stuff for so long. How much more drugs can you take? How much more, everything can you do? And sure enough, I did everything. I participated fully like people do on New Year's Eve. The next day, January 1st, 1970, I woke up and I said, this is it. And that was it. So sometimes we get markers with our destiny, with our astrology. And I wasn't even a great meditator or anything then. But you start seeing the divine plan before your very eyes. And sometimes it's just through grace. Then you start watching and watching. And then you know if you don't know something. Like people will say, well, blah, 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 blah. And now I don't know, the answer hasn't come yet. I have to wait. I don't know the location. I don't know. I don't know yet. And many times we don't because it's not our time. Because you don't make up the answers in your head. They come through you from a divine source. And if you think you do, then you think, if you're a kind of person that thinks I have to have an answer for everything, you'll just make stuff up and make all kinds of mistakes. And I know it might be hard in business if you work like in a corporation or something. It hasn't come through me yet. But in most cases it doesn't. We call it brainstorms. But it's really an opening in the universe that gives you that answer. And it comes in many ways. You're taking a walk along the ocean, and a bird makes a sound and gives you a message. The wind has so many answers. Nature can give it to you. But how can you hear nature? You have to be quiet. You can't get an answer when the mind is racing like a mouse, trying to find the answer. That's why meditation is so divine. You sit, you get still. We get up before the sun gets up, the ambrosial hours, and do sadhana. The clarity that comes there because the universe is so quiet. The birds will not hear in the morning. There's no morning anymore right now. But the birds aren't even singing. You're up before the birds are even singing. And then as you finish, the birds start singing, the sun comes up, and you have that whole world to yourself, for all the answers just streaming in. A lot of times when you finish and you have to do any phone work, you call, you're so clear. You write an email, so clear. You even clean your house, so clear. It's an unbelievable situation to get up before the sun comes up. Here you have a little challenge right now, but in the winter you got it good. Noon, I'm getting up. But anyways, so much to do, so much to be thankful, so much to talk about, but we're not going to talk anymore. You have this beautiful yoga center where you can continue to learn and experience. And I'm very thankful. We're going to spend a day tomorrow looking